Welcome back to Charming Data, everybody. So this tutorial is going to be a beginner's guide to the Dash data table. I'm going to show you how to combine the Dash data table with interactive graphs in order to create web-based analytics. Have you ever used spreadsheets in your life? Well, this is exactly like a spreadsheet. The Dash data table is actually a form of a spreadsheet. Think about all the times that you've used Excel sheet in your life. Well, if you want to upload the Excel sheet into the Dash data table, you can do that easily, and now you have a data table spreadsheet that's on the web for you to use, for you to manipulate, for you to change, and for others to use as well. The goal of this tutorial is to show you how to enhance your spreadsheet-based applications to actually create fully fledged applications with them. So let's see what we're actually going to do right now today. Today we're going to do this. We're going to create this data table based on data from Europe about usage of internet and the population that uses that internet in every country, or the percent of population that uses the internet in every country. And we're going to combine that into the creation of a bar chart and a map. All right. So in this case, for example, I reloaded it. We are going to see that we're going to have several columns. We're going to have the amount of population that use internet daily in every country, Austria, Belgium right here, the amount of population that did online course in 2019. Everything is 2019, and this is weekly, this column right here. So as you can see, the graph that we created below, soon we'll go into the code and you'll see how to create these graphs below. In the y-axis, we have the percent of population that took an online course. We'll see that, for example, Turkey, you only have 2%, while all the way up to Finland in 2019, 21% of the population did at least one online course. Fascinating data. And the map here shows you the percent of population that uses internet daily. You have a legend right here that's beautiful, and you can see that the lower southeastern countries in Europe don't have a very high percentage of people that use internet daily. Maybe they don't have the infrastructure, maybe it's expensive, I'm not sure, but it's a good research question. And those above obviously have a high number, like Sweden 91%, Iceland 97%, that use the internet daily. So all this is tied to the Dash data table. This is a wonderful, wonderful spreadsheet that allows you a lot of interactive capabilities that we'll go into shortly. But one of the few things that you can do, or several of the few things that you can do with the Dash data table, is you can choose different rows, and based on those rows, the bars are highlighted, and the borders of the country you can see here are bolded, and they're bigger. Now they're 5 pixels because I chose those countries. You can choose certain rows if you want. You can delete certain rows. I'm going to delete the year row. You can hide certain rows, ISO alpha. You can sort them as well. Unless I want to see only countries that start with a letter that are higher than the letter E, or capital E. Or I want to see only those countries where did an online course above 15% of the population. So now we have only 5 countries, and so on and so on and so on. You can also do equals. You can do that, or you can also do bigger and equal, or bigger or equal to, let's say, 65. And then you get all those countries that are bigger or equal to 65. You can also change different pages. So not all the 200 countries, or what if you have a data table with 1,000 rows? So not all 1,000 rows are on the page. Now it speeds up the application because it just does it one page at a time. So we're going to go over all this and go all over the code to know. So I can show you how to do this, and you can do this on your own. And I'm also going to show you where the documentation lies, so you can actually follow up later, read the documentation, and do more things on your own and not depend only on this tutorial. All right, so the data we're going to use for this is data that I downloaded from the internet. It's in the link below the video, so make sure to open the links below the video for the data, the code, and the documentation so you can follow along. And as you've seen, we have these columns that we're going to upload inside the code. We're going to upload into the Dash data table. So this is the code that we're going to use. Remember to open the link below the video so you can follow along with the code. We're going to import all these libraries in order to create this web-based application. Obviously, we're going to need Dash, and we're going to need Plotly Express to create the graphs and the data table. So make sure to import those. The next thing we're going to do here is I usually use this section to filter the data. So in this case, I'm putting the CSV into a pandas data frame. I'm going to filter, and I'm going to do only 2019 because, as you can recall from the Excel sheet we had from 2010, I think, or 2015 to 2019. Well, I'm going to do only 2019 for the purposes of this tutorial. And then I'm going to do one thing that I don't always do, but it's good for the data table, which is to create an ID column. So I'm going to create a column that's going to serve as our ID. Okay, so in this case, the ISO alpha 3, which is the 3 digits. Let me show you right here. The 3 digits for each country. You see Lithuania has their world known code is LTU, MLT is Malta. So that's going to be my ID for the data table. ID column. You don't have to create this, but it does help with user interactivity and gives you a lot more capabilities to play around with the graph and with the data table when you have an ID column that's built in there. So I'm going to create this df ID inside my data frame, reset the index, and now I have all these columns that are in there. Now we're going to start. We're going to start with the app dash. All right. And then I'm going to build the app layout. This is the div. It's going to start here, and this whole section is going to end right here. All right. The dash data table ends here. And then we're going to put a break in the app layout in the page. We're going to put another break, and then we're going to put an empty vid right now. There's going to be a bar chart that's going to go in there later, but right now it's empty. And we're going to put an empty choropleth map, an empty div where the choropleth map is going to go in there later. It's going to go in there with all this data below, but we're going to focus on that data later. Right now, we're going to focus on the dash data table and all the different parameters inside the data table that we can interact with. If you want to see the documentation, in fact, I would recommend you see the documentation so you can learn from it in the future. Go into this link below the video. This is a dash data table interactivity. I am on the sorting part or subsection, and a lot of the things we're going to go over in the tutorial talk about are in here in this page. I also have different videos about the dash data table height or the dash data table width. If you want to, feel free to go into the data table playlist, and you'll see all these different videos if you want to go into more detail. The last thing is click on the references and you'll open up this link. This link has all the different parameters that are possible to use inside the dash data table. There is probably dozens here, maybe like 50 or maybe even more. I'm going to go over the most important ones in the code below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. As soon as I get a chance, I'll answer you, or just leave a remark, say a like button, and let me know what you think, because it's with your opinion that I know how to create better tutorials in the future. So don't be afraid to speak up and share your feedback with me. All right, so the dash data table. The first thing you want to do is obviously give it an ID, because we're going to connect that to the graph later on. And then I'm creating here the columns. So here I'm going to say, I mean, you can create columns like this, just it's a list of dictionaries. So you can create like 10 different dictionaries for 10 different columns, but I'm just going to use a for loop so it's faster. So I'm going to say for I in the df columns, you remember we had like 6 or 7 columns. If the column is equal to, if it's called ISO alpha or the year or the ID that we just created, the ID column, then create this. Okay, create this this column name. You're going to create it. The name is going to be I. The ID is going to be I, which is going to be the name of the column. It's going to be deletable. You can delete the column. It's going to be selectable. The user can select it, and it's going to be hideable. All right, so the user can hide it. Else, I'm saying, if the column name is not one of these, if one of these are not inside the column, then just create exactly the same thing, but without the hideable. So there's no option to hide it. So let's see how that looks like. You see how here I can hide ISO alpha, I can hide year, and I can hide ID, but I cannot hide the rest of these columns because they are essential, so I don't want to give the user the opportunity to hide them. All right, so let's in fact go and hide 2019 because we don't need it right now. All right, so I created the columns here, and now I have the main parameter that's always going to be used. It's the data parameter, which is the contents of the data table. So I'm gonna use DF because that's the data frame that I filtered above right here. I'm gonna use DF and just put the records in there. So this gives us all the rows and the cells inside the rows. Here I'm gonna say editable true. So I'm gonna allow the editing of the data inside the cells. So if I go into the cell, I can actually, let's look at online course right here. Let's choose Bulgaria. Bulgaria is one of the lowest ones. Let's change online course to 20 and see where they stand after we change that to 20. Where is Bulgaria? Oh, I changed something else. Sorry, I changed Croatia. Let's change Bulgaria to 20. And now we see that Bulgaria has a high, it's up there among the highest percentages of populations that do an online course annually. All right, so that's editable. Filter action. This allows the filtering of data by the user. If I put this, the option is native, or if you go a little right here, the option is none. Another option is none. So none is none. I don't have to go over that. But native means that I'm allowing the user to filter. So this row here exists where I can filter stuff because it's native. If I put none, this row will disappear. This row will not exist. So now if I want to see all countries that have the letter Y in them, I'll see all countries with the letter Y in them. It's kind of neat. I really like that capability. Right. Sort action, also you have native or none. This allows you to sort the column or not sort the column. So this action, this native here, allows you this little arrow. You see this little arrow where you can sort by alphabetically and maybe you can sort by daily. This little arrow is because I put native here. The other option is to put none, and then you won't have that capability to sort, at least for the user. Sort mode, single. This is this could be either single or multi. It means that you allow users to sort either on a single column or multiple columns. So you can sort first column countries, and then if you choose multi, you can then sort year, and it will keep the countries sorted, but also sort years. So play around with it. If you don't know what I'm saying, if you think I'm saying gibberish or not explaining well, just change this to multi and see what it gives you and see how it changes. Sorry. Column selectable. Again, you have the options of multi or year. It allows the user to select the column. So if this was this is multi, so I can choose multi columns. If I chose single, then I would only be able to choose one column at a time. I think another option is none. So if you don't want to give the user an option to choose your column, then just put none. Row selectable is multi. Same thing, I can select multiple rows or single or none, whatever you choose. Row deletable, I can delete the rows. Let's go in there. I can delete Germany, and now Germany will not appear in the bar chart. And now Germany in the here won't appear, right? Everything was blacked out because we filtered them, but Germany does not appear. As a reminder, this is only for the data table. All this bar and map is working below because I connected it with a callback in the code below, but we'll go over that later. Right now, this is only for the table. So we went over row deletable, selected columns and selected rows. They're just IDs and indices of columns that the user selects. We'll actually go in that later, so you'll see how that works, because that's essential. That's what you need to know in order to create interactive dashboards. Page action. This actually passes all the data to the table up front. Or you can just choose none if you don't want to pass all the data there. Typically, you would see it as native, especially when you put page size and page current. So page current is what page you want to be on. If you have 7 different pages because you have 70 rows and you only want 10 rows per page, you will have 7 different pages. So in this case, I want the page default app to start on page 0, and I only want 6 rows per page. Okay, and then styling. I'm going to do a little bit of styling here. I go over it in a different video, my styling video on the playlist of the data table. You can click above if you want to see that that video on the card above, or that playlist, sorry. But in this styling, I'm ensuring with this code here that there's adequate header width when the text is shorter than the cell's text. What do I mean by that? If this did not exist, no, because this is here, what happens is, let's reload this and see 2019. Oh, what did I do? Oh, perfect. You see how the year is right here? I'm going to make this smaller, and you see how year is like this. It all fits. The I, the hideable, the delete, the year, it all fits in there. If I didn't use this, if I didn't use this piece of code, this will be all jumbled up. Like the year will be down here. You can try it on your own. It doesn't look good, so I'm not going to show you. Style cell conditions. Here we're aligning all the text to some columns to the left. Typically, in spreadsheet culture, you want to have text cells or text columns aligned to the left, and you want to have number columns aligned to the right. So that's why, oh, I forgot to do this. I should have done this as well. ID column. So that's why I'm saying here, if the column for for column in country and ISO alpha, which are my text columns, if the column ID is C, then text aligned to the left. Because by default, all the columns are aligned to the right. So I'm not going to touch the numerical ones. I'm just touching the text ones. And then here, I'm just overflowing the cells content into multiple lines. This code allows me that. Now, if I go in here and I make it smaller, you see how Bosnia and Herzegovina is on 2 lines. If this did not exist, then this would be on 1 line, and we would probably not see, we would only see like this. We would only see it like this, right? But now because I have the code, we see it in multiple lines. This is usually good when you have big paragraphs or a lot of things in there. Okay, so we went over all the parameters that are really relevant in the Dash data table, but there's a lot more. So look at the documentation if you want to see all the rest of the parameters. Now what we're going to do is we're going to see how we connect that Dash data table and the data inside the data table to create the bar chart and the map, the choropleth map. Okay, so in this we have to create the app callback. Again, I'm going to assume you know what this callback means and you know what the update bar means. I'm sorry, the function, the callback function means. If you do not know, I don't want to make this tutorial a 2-hour tutorial, so please go into the video card above and click on the introduction to Dash. It is going to explain everything about the callback and the function and how everything is connected to create it. But I'm gonna assume that I'm gonna show you that in the output we're gonna output the children of the bar container. All right, the bar container is right here, is the ID of the div. So whatever is I'm gonna output in the function right here below, all the way down here. I'm returning something. This is gonna return is actually the children of the bar container. So this is actually the figure. Here's where I'm returning the figure based on the information from all these inputs. Now, we do not need all these inputs. I just put them up there because I want to show you what these mean, but we only need 1 or 2 inputs. Okay, so actually let's go over the inputs that we do need for the bar data table, and then I'm going to show you the rest of the inputs. So as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inputs, I think, which is why we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we have 8 arguments inside the callback function. All right. The most important ones are the first 2 inputs. I call them all rows data and selected rows indices, which are these first 2. These first 2 inputs, which is right here, the derived virtual data and the derived virtual selected rows. Remember these names because these properties of the Dash data table are very important. You will usually use either both or one of these to create interactive graphs. So I'm going to use them below by doing this. We'll go over the printing later. I'm going to go and I'm going to say put all rows data. What is all rows data? All rows data is the first thing I see here, which is the data across all pages pre or post filtering. So after I filter, all the data that I have, all the rows that I have left are going to be inputted into the DFF. So I'm creating a new data frame based on the rows that I have left after I filter. Not necessarily visible. They could be on 5 different pages instead of 10, but all those 5 pages and their rows are going to go into this DFF. And now I'm going to say change a little bit the colors. We're going to play around with the color because I want to use this colors later on down below to highlight the selected countries on the bar chart. So to do that, I'm going to say if for I in the range of 0 to whatever the length of the data frame is, let's say 25, for I from 0 to 25, if I exists inside the selected row indices. What are the selected row indices? That's a good question. That is this indices of selected rows if part of the table after filtering. What I mean by this is if I select rows, let's say I select Belgium, right? Okay, it's highlighting here. But then I filter it, and it's not there anymore because I only want countries over 90, let's say, and Belgium is 85, and I click enter. Belgium is not going to be in there, so it's not going to be part of the bar, and it's not going to be part of the selected row indices. And since it's not part of the selected rows indices, it's just going to be this regular color. If it is, it's going to be this nice light blue color that you just saw. This is going to be colors here. Right here, this is nothing yet, but I'm going to plug this colors into the update traces, and that is how I get the color that is updated every time I click on a certain row. Okay, if you don't know this or this seems too complex, just take it out. It doesn't really matter. Take this out. The most important thing is to know the basics of the data frame and how to create a bar chart from the dash data table. So here I'm going to return a graph with the bar chart. I'm only going to do this if the country is in the data frame, country column, and if the did online course is in the data frame. Why am I doing this only when both of them are in the data frame? Because it doesn't really make sense for the bar chart needs a country for the x-axis and the percent of population of online course for the y-axis. So if I delete the country, remember I gave the user the option to delete. If I delete the country, I don't want a bar chart to be there because it doesn't make sense. It's not part of the data table. So if I delete country, or let's say online course, I'm going to did online course, I'm going to delete this. The bar chart does not appear anymore. All right, and that's because I did this right here. So if both of them are in there, I'm going to return the DCC graph, which is a dash component where I can create different things, different figures. And in this figure is going to be the Plotly Express bar. I'm going to call the bar method to create a bar chart. And inside the bar chart, we have different parameters. We have the data frame, the x-axis, the y-axis, the labels. If you want to learn more about the bar chart, because here I have only 3 parameters, but I have a video above on the card above. Click on it, and you'll see all the different parameters of a bar chart. For now, all we'll need is the x-axis, which is the country column from the data frame, and the did online course column from the data frame on the y. And then I'm just changing the labels here, so I call it differently. I'm giving it this name instead of this name. I'm not going to show the legend because I don't want to show a bar legend. And then this is just so I can put the title, ascending, so the bar chart are ascending from the lowest all the way to the highest number. And that's it. And then I close the children, I close the list. And remember, this list, this return object, is whatever was the output. So the output here was the children of the bar container, which goes in here. Okay, so we created the bar chart. Before we go into the printing part, I'm doing exactly the same thing with the choropleth map. I'm actually going below here, and you'll see here the choropleth map. I'm putting the choropleth map container is the ID for the output because it's a different div. Okay, and the property is going to be children, and I'm going to take these 2 things is really what I need, the derived virtual data and virtual selected rows, exactly like the ones above. And I'm going to put them here into the new function, and I'm going to do the same thing with the bar chart. Instead of colors, I'm going to put borders. I'm going to make the pixels of the border 5 instead of 1, which is default, because I want them to be highlighted when I choose a certain country. And then I'm going to say if the columns of ISO alpha and Internet Daily and country are in DFF, then return something. If not, don't return anything, because if one of these are not in there, I don't want the user to see a map. There's no point in a user, let's see ISO alpha or country, let's see country. There's no point in a user to see a map if the country column is deleted, right? So only if ISO alpha, Internet Daily, and country are all in there as part of the DFF, then you're going to create, this is going to spit out a map for you, okay? Again, here you have an ID of the choropleth map. We're going to style it so it's a little bit bigger. I'm going to create the figure, calling the method of choropleth on the Plotly Express. There's going to be locations. So alpha is locations. Those are the 3 letters that you see for every country. That's how the map in Plotly knows which country is which. I'm going to focus on Europe. The color is going to be Internet Daily. So that's how you see the legend, and you see that the darker colors are the lesser values that have percentages that are lower, and the lighter colors are percentages that are higher. I'm going to give this a title. This is the title that I gave the plot, the template, the hover data, and so on and so on. Here I'm playing a little bit. Oh, here I'm doing the borders, right? So I'm updating the traces. So if they clicked on a certain country on a certain row, the borders is going to be the marker line width. All right, this is the marker line width is going to be this border. All right, so if I click, for example, on, let's click on Iceland. Where is that? Come on. Reset. Let's click on Belgium. So if I go to Belgium right now, oh, it's picking on Belgium. You see how Belgium now is highlighted with this border. Okay, one of the last thing is the callback to highlight selected columns. This interactivity here is allowing us to actually, when you click on something, it highlights the whole column. It gives this color. And why is that? Because I'm actually taking the dash data table ID, taking the selected columns property, and using that to return the style data conditional of the data table. All this is inside the documentation. So for example, what is style data conditional? I have no idea. Copy paste this, go into the documentation, which is right here in the references above, just do Control F and look what is a style data conditional. Well, there we go. Style data conditional is a conditional CSS styling for the data cells. All right, and you can use the if, and it's a list of dictionaries. Here it says list of dictionaries containing if statements that allows you to do something based on the data that's in the dash data table. In this case, we are obviously making it a different color. So I'm taking the selected columns, which we'll see in a sec what that is, and I'm saying if the column ID inside all the columns that were selected is I, is part of it, then if that selected column, then give it this color. All right, play around with it, choose a different color, choose a different parameter. You can do that as well and see what you get with that. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you before I close this or finish this tutorial is all these different capabilities that you have with a dash data table. There's a bunch of different information that you can get that allows you a lot more interactivity with the dash data table. All this is in the documentation, all these different properties of the dash data table, the selected rows, which we style the columns with, the derived virtual indices. So I'm going to give you a shortcut. Instead of reading the whole documentation about all these, I'm summarizing them here in the print function so you see what they mean. Okay. So let me show you. With one print, I'm going to show you all of these. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay. Let's make this, renew this. All right. Let's see what these mean. So the first one is the all rows data right here. And remember, this is going to focus on, this is a derived virtual data. So the first one is right here, is the first print, right? Which is right here. Data across all pages, pre or post filtering. So now I have all the countries there. So I'm going to have a list of dictionaries with all the countries and the columns and the data there. But let's say now I have Austria. But let's say I change that to, let's filter out Austria. So it's only those over the letter B. So now I have Belgium. Now you'll see that it changed. Now you'll see right here, this is the new line. Data across all pages starts from Belgium. It'll give you the ISO alpha, it'll give you the year column, the internet, it'll give you all the columns and remember the ID that we created at the very beginning, BEL. And then we'll go to the second country, Bosnia. So it gives you all the data that's left in the dash data table after you filter or before you filter your data table. The next thing is indices of selected rows, right? So there's three different parameters here. We're going to play around with the selected rows indices, the selected row names, and the selected rows, which remember all refer to, these three refer to these three. Not the first one, but this one, and this one, all right? So we're going to see that the selected rows indices argument refers to the indices of selected rows if part of the table after filtering. What do I mean by that? Let's actually go in there and filter something. Let's do this. Let's choose Bulgaria, right? And we'll see what we get here. We chose Bulgaria and we see, let's go to the top, the second one. We see that the indices of the selected rows is 3 because Bulgaria was ID number 3. BGR was the name of that row, was the name of that ID in that row. And these two are there because they're part of the table after filtering or pre-filtering. They're still in there. We can still see it. If I filter this is selected. But if I filter and I say only give me those over 61, see Bulgaria will not be there because Bulgaria is 60. So over 61, Bulgaria is not here anymore. So that's why when you go back and it prints it out again, you'll see that these are empty. They're not here anymore. But this one is here. 3 is here because this argument, which is referring to this, the selected rows, which again refers to this selected rows. This actually is indices of selected rows regardless of filtering results. So after I filter it, it's still considered selected until I deselect it. Okay, so a couple more things. The next thing we're going to look is into indices of all rows pre or post filtering. This is the derived virtual indices and derived virtual rows IDs. So remember we created the row ID, the column ID, DF ID from the ISO alpha at the very beginning of the code. Well, now we have the column ID, and now we can see if after things are filtered, what the indices are of all the rows. So it's actually the order of them. So for example, if I filter this and I say, give me all those that are above, it has nothing to do with select. I want all those that are above E. So Estonia, Finland, anything with G, H. Now I'll see, let's go all the way down, that the indices of all rows after filtering where it starts from A and it starts from Estonia and then Finland and then France. So this is another piece of data that then you can play around with and take inside your input and say, give me this information to output something else. The last thing is chosen cells. These are the active cell and the selected cell. These refer to the last two inputs right here. Where is it? The active cell and the selected cell. All right. Sorry, active cell and selected cell. And these are right here. So I'm printing this right here, and you'll see that if I select the cell, let's say I'm selecting Germany, all right, now you'll see right here that the row selected was row 3, column ID, and the row ID was Deutschland, Germany, all right? This is right now is the same thing, the complete data of all selected cells because there was only one. But if I selected multiple, let's say I did Shift Hungary, so now I'm selecting 3 cells. Now you'll see that this is different. You'll see here still only one row because this is the top one, which was Deutschland. But the next one is a list of dictionaries of all of the 3 different cells that I chose, row 3, 4, and 5. All right, folks, so we went over the dash data table, we went over the bar chart, the core path map, how to connect everything into a beautiful interactive data visualization dashboards. And now I challenge you to do this on your own, to try this, to try to connect different graphs to it, to try to connect different CSV charts into the dash data table so you can build your own data visualization web analytic apps. Good luck, and I hope you enjoy the process while you do it.